Day 2 of Pokemon Week as I prepare for Pokemon X and Y this weekend. Question is, what to do for Day 2? Well, what better way to look forward to the future than to take a look back at the past? Which is why today I'm doing the one thing all us Pokemon fans must do, my top 10 favorite Pokemon lists. Just so you know, these Pokemon are cool, they're fun, they're exciting. Or at least I think so. Many of you will probably disagree. I hope not, because that'll hurt my feelings. Just cue title scene. Quick disclaimer. There's about 650 of these things, and there's going to be probably 150 more by the time this week is over. So, it's not that I hate any Pokemon, or it's not that there's any I overly dislike. And when I sat down to do this, it was actually a lot harder than I thought. At first I thought I just picked the most awesome ones, but the more I thought about it, the more I found it's the ones I personally, in my 20 years on this earth, have had a special connection with. They're the ones that I connect with, even if that reason doesn't make sense to anyone else, and even though it is probably something that only matters to me. But, without further ado, let's get started and be in store for some very bizarre stories. That's right, people. Starting off this list is a newbie with the G5 Pokemon Virizion. Now, for those of you who don't know, Virizion is part of the Sacred Sword trio. It was in one of the movies, and it is based off a member of the Three Musketeers whose name I'm not even going to bother pronouncing, we'll just put over here, who is actually considered the more feminine of the group. So not only do I think the concept is interesting, and the execution I feel really embodies what it's going for, but I do have a personal connection with this Pokemon. You see, over the past several months, I've actually started really seriously playing the card game, in that now I actually know how it really works instead of just flinging them at the back of my sister's head. And what is my main Pokemon in my deck? Mewtwo level X. But in reality, when it comes down to it, the Pokemon that's always got my back and always helps me get to that supercharged Mewtwo is Virizion, with its double draw ability from the Emerging Powers set. What was that one from? Oh, right. I should know this stuff. I actually find that it gets me my wins even more than you expect. It's like in a war. The nuke may have won World War II, but it's the soldiers who kicked Japan's ass. It is a simple story, but one we all know. Boy turns 10, boy goes to random scientist who for some reason lives in their tiny little town, and is asked to choose one of 3 little killer creatures to accompany them on their journey through a land of killer monsters that could easily light them on fire or electrocute them to death. And for many people out there, the first time they chose it was Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle. But believe it or not, I'm actually a bit younger than I look, so I actually didn't get my first game until Gold. And so because of this, my choice was a little dinosaur thing with a leaf on its head, a little Australian mammal that lays eggs, and a cute little alligator. Believe it or not, I was actually going to go with the egg-laying thing at first, but I kind of didn't realize that you could pick no when you walked up to the Pokeball, and the first one I went up to was Totodile, and I picked it. And, well, some call it fate, I call it not paying attention to what I was doing. But the story doesn't end there. You see, as it turns out, I never figured out how to catch Pokemon until Pokemon Ruby. I'm pathetic, yeah. I never once occurred to me to look at the instruction book or ask all my other friends how you caught Pokemon. Instead, I thought it was some weird trick where you threw the ball when the Pokemon fainted, but I didn't know how because the buttons weren't selected and the Game Boy Color was too confusing, and I was too proud to ask anyone, and I just, But that didn't stop me. I played through Gold for a considerable amount of time just with my Feraligatr. He made it all the way to level 100, and I spent much of that time period learning curse words to use at Pokemon. Hey, do you guys remember Ruby and Sapphire? Remember how you were able to choose between a boy or a girl character, which didn't matter to me because I was a boy, but I got my sister to play, so I always had someone to trade with? Okay, maybe you don't remember that because you don't know my sister. But, guess what else Gen 3 had? It was totally possible to not get the Master Ball. That's right. If you went, because the way it worked was you went through their base in Lily Cove City, either Team Magma or Team Aqua. I played Team Magma because I went with Ruby. I wasn't going to have some stupid blue fish. And when you go through this base, it is totally possible to miss the little entrance where you get the Master Ball. And I missed it, so I never got the Master Ball in Ruby. Or maybe I did and wasted it on like a Feebas or something. But instead what happened was, for a good couple of years, I was stuck right when you're supposed to catch Groudon and the whole region is basically bursting into flames from permanent sunlight. And I tried over and over again, and even a couple times I actually decided to defeat Groudon and pay for the games, but I could never bring myself to save it because I wanted the Groudon so badly. But then one day I actually got a little tip because I actually started listening to what people have to say. And I found out that this is true if you have a Sceptile and if it knows Leaf Blade. It can actually get the Groudon to 1 HP, and if you use an Ultra Ball, it'll catch it guaranteed each time. I don't know why. I guess it's a glitch or something. Maybe even just a backdoor for trainers who make that same mistake. I don't know why Game Freak made that mistake of putting the Master Ball in an ungettable way in the first place. But that's how it worked. And when I first thought of this list, I thought, no way, Groudon. It taunted me for 3 years. It drove me crazy. It almost turned me off Pokemon games completely. The only reason I finished Leaf Green was because I didn't want to. And not only that, my starter for Ruby was my beloved Mudkip, who is an honorable mention here. But then when I found out the Sceptile trick, by that point, Emerald had been out, and in that one I had went with Trico so I could be like Ash. I love you, buddy. Doesn't matter if you're technically an idiot. But the thing is that, so I traded that, and I did the trick, and I got Groudon, and I felt so relieved and so happy. Then the memory died on the Game Boy cartridge battery, and it was all for nothing. And I, for so many years, just hated Ruby, just always remembering that that was the insanity that occupied this. It's not a huge part of my life, because it's, you know, just a game, but it's the things like that you remember. And when it came down to doing this list, that was actually the first thing I thought of when I started thinking sentimental reasons. And I thought of that story, and all I could do was laugh. And Groudon needed to be here. It just did. And I seriously hope if they ever do reboots of Ruby and Sapphire, they make the Master Ball gettable, because knowing my luck, I'll make that same mistake and I won't have a Sceptile. Get on it. Another story, but this one's not as long or weird. Okay, do all of you remember how in like those little activity books they made for Pokemon, there would always be these temporary tattoos? You wetted them, you put them on your arm, and they'd last a couple of days, week at most, and by that point they'd just be little scrapes of color. I had a lot of them, yeah, and I always loved them. I thought it was fun to have tattoos. I'd get a tattoo right now if it wasn't for the fact that needles are scary. And the one that always got me, because I didn't have the strategy guide, the internet wasn't much, and like I said, I didn't play through Red and Blue where they were new. I didn't play through Red until I was much older and was just more curious than anything else. I never figured out what this purple one was. Because Nidoking, I don't think it's ever been featured in the show for more than 5 minutes, which is a crying shame. And it just, to me as a kid, it didn't look like a Pokemon. When I thought of Pokemon, I always just thought these cute little things. Even when you think about it, the ones who were fully evolved for G1 were still pretty reserved, still pretty cute. And to me, Nidoking just looked like a badass. He had all the spikes, the big arms, he looked like a monster. And it just always made my imagination go wild. Was this a Pokemon that was just thrown in there? Was it a mystery? What was it? And then when I found out what it was and that it was actually really easy to get, and I had one, it just felt so cool because it's a Pokemon game. There's really not much of a story to the Pokemon you catch. So you can make up your little things, and it was just fun to have that thing that always kept me guessing when I was 5. Because that's what Pokemon is. Something that makes absolutely no sense. Oh boy, I bet some of you are getting mad. I got 2 G5s on here so far. Oh boy. But, once again, another reason, this one not as bizarre or obscure, it's actually the opposite. For me, the games, obviously, as you've probably figured out, I've never been overly great at them, just because I'm not into the competitive part of it until just recently, not knowing basic mechanics. But with Black and White, I really had a good handle. I knew what I wanted to do. I understood how to build a team. I learned all that through Diamond and Pearl and Ruby and Sapphire and Gold and Silver. But for me, Black and White, apart from having the best story of any Pokemon game so far, I just thought it was so great to go into this knowing how to do this. And let's be honest, the Pokemon you catch at first aren't great. Things don't usually show up that are really uber strong. And a lot of people, they ditch their old ones on their team for newer ones the stronger they get. They look online, they EV train, they do all this. I didn't really want to do that. I just wanted a fun team I could build memories with, and everyone told me, don't use Zebstrika, don't use Blitzel. They're stupid, they're weak, they're not over strong, they're not overusable. I didn't look at that as something to avoid. I saw it almost like a challenge. And hell, it's a zebra. Who doesn't love zebras? Even Chris Rock is bearable when he's a zebra. And I loved the challenge, and I loved raising my Blitzel and making it a Zebstrika. The hardest gym in Black and White was the 4th one, the Electric Gym, because the gym leader used the 2 Emolgas, which just use Volt Switch, get in, attack, disappear. Emolga does not have an uber amount of weaknesses, so you really couldn't hit it with anything because you can't get ice types till later in the game. And I just gave up pretty much, so I just put my Zebstrika on there. It just evolved literally that day. I accidentally gave it a rare candy I was going to give someone else, and I just figured, screw it, let's do it. And of course, Zebstrika was able to, because of its ability, it just got stronger whenever the Volt Switches came in. Emolga is normal affected to electric attacks, so every electric attack was stronger, and I won the gym with Zebstrika, and I just rubbed it in my friends' faces, and it felt so cool to not prove everyone wrong, because they weren't wrong. It isn't an uber powerful Pokemon, but it was just so cool to do it and have that level, to, in my own right, prove I was good and strong and prove everyone wrong that I could go far with this Pokemon. And end of the game, your final battle with Getsis, the true creme de la creme of Pokemon game villains. That's who beat him. His final match was his final Pokemon was an Electros. I went at it with everything, and I couldn't beat it. Partially because my starter Pokemon and the main one on my team is Samurott, and it came down to Zebstrika. Once again, electric attacks couldn't hit it. I hadn't used it all battles, so nothing it had was really hurting it. And again, anytime it used an electric attack, more powerful, and I beat it with Thrash, which I had just taught it that day, and I kind of beat the game during class. Stay in school, kids. Don't play Pokemon when you're actually supposed to be performing at your school's pep rally in the marching band. Screw it, you know you'll want to.